Thank you, Mr. Seeker. Good morning, brethren. Welcome to Sabbath services here in the Elmira congregation. Mr. and Mrs. Teague, good morning. So each week, we sing our praises to God as we participate in the song service, which obviously we just did here just a couple minutes ago. And it's funny that our speakers often comment how the hymns that our song leaders choose seem to summarize the messages that we give. I'm always amazed how well the song service blends and ties together with the speaking portion of our services. Although sometimes I'm surprised, we probably really shouldn't be. We really shouldn't be surprised that the song service, the sermonette, and the sermon all kind of connect to each other. We know that God inspires the speakers each week as we begin to prepare for sermonettes and sermons, and sometimes it happens weeks prior to the time that we give our message, but we always are inspired in one way or another to give a particular message. So it really probably shouldn't surprise us all that much that God may also inspire the songs that the song leaders choose as well. During the opening prayer, Mr. Joe, I kind of stacked the first part of this sermonette because I knew the things I would say would actually happen because it happens every week. So I'm not all that smart, I just knew what was going to kind of happen. So we always hear in the opening prayer that the opening prayer man usually asks God to inspire the speaking and the hearing, which we heard this morning. God seems to answer that prayer for us each and every week, as the song service usually blends nicely with the sermonette, and the sermonette usually has some sort of connection with the sermon. Now each of us may hear or see something slightly different. We may make different connections to the sermonette or the sermon, and usually that's dependent upon kind of what happened to us throughout the week. Some of our experiences throughout the week may cause us to listen or hear a couple different points in the sermon or the sermonette, and we all come away with maybe slightly different learning or understanding. God definitely knows what we need to hear each week, and He opens our hearts and our minds so that the messages that are being given and that have been prepared usually fill that need. I was kind of inspired to write this sermonette as I was actually flipping through the hymnal, new word. As I was flipping through the hymnal, choosing songs a couple weeks ago, and one of the words kept catching my eye. That word was glory. The word glory appears in 9 of our hymn's titles. I was hoping that Andy would pick one of those, but he did pick one that fits in very nicely, and I'll make mention of that a little bit later. But those are: the heavens God's glory do declare, God of grace and God of glory, we will glorify, glorious things of thee are spoken, to God be the glory to thy name, all glory, laud, and honor, from the realms of unseen glory. And of course, the boys' favorites. Mine eyes have seen the glory, right? Come on, play along, boys. So those are the 9 hymns that include the word glory. Each of those hymns are taken from the book of Psalms. So I thought I would just take 2 seconds just to read the introduction to the book of Psalms. And this is from I think it's the King James Version. It says here that the book of Psalms is the largest and perhaps most widely used book in the Bible. It explores the full range of human experience in a very personal and practical way. Its 150, in quotation marks, it says, songs, runs from the creation through the many different eras throughout the Bible. The tremendous breadth and subject matter in the Psalms include diverse topics such as jubilation, war, peace, worship, judgment, messianic prophecy, praise, and lament. The Psalms were set to the accompaniment of stringed instruments and served as the temple hymn book and devotional guide for the Jewish people. And then it kind of goes on, but really the purpose of kind of reading that section is one of the definitions of glory is praise. So as we listen to those songs, all those songs from the book of Psalms is about praise. Praising God, worshiping God. So it's not surprising that the hymn containing some of the forms of the word glory were based on that particular book in the Bible. The hymn on page 127, entitled We Will Glorify, is taken from Psalm 86, verse 12. Don't necessarily need to turn there, but this psalm says, I will glorify your name forevermore. So the question becomes, how do we glorify God? The word glory, as I mentioned earlier, has several different but similar meanings. One of those meanings is praise, worshipful praise, honor, thanksgiving, or something that secures praise or renown. There were several other definitions in the dictionary, but those are essentially the ones that I'd like to focus on in the next 10 minutes or so. In Matthew 5:16, you could turn there if you'd like. Matthew 5:16, we're told that we are to let our light shine on the world. It says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Brethren, we honor God and praise Him when we let our light shine on others. Although I didn't make it to New York City, we decided not to go, but I did have to go to Albany this week. I had an educational conference in Albany, and I was on my way after the conference to meet my boss and a couple other principals for dinner. As I normally do, I got lost going to the restaurant. They gave me very detailed directions, left, right, left, across the park, and it's right there. Well, somewhere I got messed up, and I'm wandering around Albany. So not a surprise. Lori's shaking her head and laughing. I get lost every place I go. But as I was wandering around the city, a man came up to me and began talking. He was a shady-looking character. One that you thought twice about. Do you keep walking? Do you make eye contact? Or you just keep going? But I stopped. He kind of had an unshaven face, plenty of tattoos all over, rather strange, glassy look in his eyes. At first I thought, I may have made a mistake. I made eye contact with this guy, and immediately he starts running over to me. I attract people. I don't know what it is, but if there's somebody that's strange, they're coming and talking to me. So he started telling me about this video that I needed to watch on YouTube. And he said the video was about the new methods of how they are killing prisoners in Ohio. So that's a little bit weird. And then he got into some very, very graphic and gruesome details about beheadings and all kinds of strange things that obviously you know is not true. I'm thinking to myself, what did I get into? Why did I stop and listen to this man? At that point, I knew he was off of his rocker. I kind of thought it before just by looking at him, which I know we're not supposed to do, but, unconsciously some of us do that, including myself. But then all of a sudden, he kind of changed gears. And he started telling me that all of the terrible things that he did in his life, and he didn't give specific examples, but just mentioned, I've done a lot of terrible things in my life, and I made the decision to change. So he kind of piqued my interest, so I listened a little bit longer. He said he was thankful to God for giving him the ability to move forward with his life. He also said that he was on a mission to help others. He told me that just this morning he came upon a girl that was being harassed by a couple of guys in the street, and he scared them away. Now this was a huge man. I mean, he was way up here, a big, huge, muscular man. So whether the story about the girl was true or not, I have no idea. But the point of the story is that he said he made a point to change, and his mission now is to help others. So just that day on the streets of Albany, I was lost trying to find my way, about ready to miss dinner. He showed me where to go. This girl, he ended up taking her to the police station and report the two men that were harassing her. Now, again, whether or not it's true or not, I don't know. But the part that surprised me is he was on a mission, walking someplace. Stopped to tell me the story, and then I told him that I was lost, I needed to get to Broadway. He immediately turned the direction of his walk and took me probably several blocks to where I needed to be. He didn't have to do that. And I was ready to kind of run for the hills when I saw the guy. So the question is, did this man glorify God with his actions? I didn't think about it at the time, but as I was putting together the sermonette, it made me wonder, did this guy glorify God with his actions? Despite of his questionable looks and a little bit unclean and all the body arts and tattoos, he did provide a good deed. I was lost. I didn't have a clue where I was going. Who knows where I would have ended up. Probably would have missed dinner. The whole thing would have been horrible. This guy stopped and helped me find my way. One of the ways that we can glorify God is to let our light shine on other people. That girl, if in fact the story was true, She was definitely in need. He stopped, helped her out, and ended up taking her to the police station. As I think back on the experience, one of the other things that I wondered was, could I have possibly have done a good deed by stopping? I don't know. He was all alone walking the streets of Albany. Based upon his story, it sounded like he'd been doing that all day because the incident with the girl was in the morning. This was probably 6, 7 o'clock when I saw him on the streets and stopped. I spent several minutes listening to this crazy story. I mean, he went on and on about the execution styles in Ohio, which, pretty confident, none of it was true. But nonetheless, he was telling the story. He spent some time talking to me. I had the opportunity, he mentioned God a couple times, and I had told him that, God does desire for us to change. Sounds like you're on the right track, keep moving forward. Who knows, maybe the few minutes that I spent with him, he gave me a handshake at the end. Maybe that's what he needed. Maybe that's a positive encouragement that he may have needed to keep moving in that direction. Was it a good deed? I don't know. But how many encounters do we unintentionally or intentionally avoid as we're out and about? I could have easily not made eye contact with a guy, ignoring him, walking like people do in the city. That would have been easy to do. But do we make an effort to make eye contact with people? Do we take a few minutes to have a conversation with that person wandering around? I'm not necessarily suggesting that we walk up to strange men on the streets of Albany or definitely New York City or some of these other places, but maybe in safe situations, do we take that effort to have a conversation with people? How many times in our lives has a person made an effort to say hello or just make a comment that we needed at that time? Think back, it's probably happened more than once. For many people, this world is not a happy place. They need that encouragement. They need that person to take time just to listen. Sometimes it's just listen. I have a crazy lady that calls me all the time on the phone, always complaining about something. But she's not really calling to complain about anything. She really wants somebody just to talk to. She's a grandmother, she's raising her 2 grandkids. Nobody's around the house all day, and she's always pleasant, always friendly, but she picks something to complain about, I think, just so she can talk to somebody. Sometimes it's a 10-minute conversation, sometimes it's 30, but you take the time, you listen to her, and you have a conversation. We were coming back from Winter Family Weekend this past year, and we were at the gas station, and I got done pumping the gas, and a guy pulls up in this old dilapidated SUV, full of kids in the back, and he said, "Could you spare a gallon of gas?" And he gave me this long story that his wife, I don't know if it was his wife, but the kid's mother was supposed to pick them up. This was, they were going for Christmas. This was actually the day after, I think, is when we left. But they were going to get their Christmas gifts, and he had to get his kids there, and she was supposed to pick them up. She couldn't make it, and now he has about enough gas to get them halfway there. Was it a story? I don't know, but I told him to open the gas tank, and I put several gallons of gas in there. Is that being a light to the world? Is that glorifying God by just that simple deed? I don't know. Another way, brethren, we can glorify God is to offer praise, which we do certainly during our song service. In Psalm 50:23, you don't necessarily need to turn there, but it says, "Whosoever offers praise glorifies me." It shouldn't be all that difficult for us to glorify God. It shouldn't be hard for us to praise God. We can look to our blessings and give thanks to God, which, like I said, is another way to glorify God or offer glory to God. We offer praise and thanksgiving to God during the opening and closing prayer. We do it when we sing songs. We do it during our daily prayer. When we do those things, we are glorifying God. We live in a beautiful part of the country. We are blessed with lakes, rivers, streams, hills, mountains to climb. Fake or real. We, for the most part, have pretty nice weather. God has created the entire universe. I don't know if you had a chance to see the moon last night, but it was pretty spectacular, especially when the clouds were kind of going over it. It was pretty spectacular. God created all of those things. God and Jesus Christ certainly shed their light on us. God has blessed each of us, maybe in a little bit different and unique ways, but we have been blessed. Brethren, we need to glorify God forevermore, as we read in Psalm 86. We need to be careful not to praise anyone else other than God for what we have, which sometimes could be tempting. Somebody gives you something, you praise them. We're not to praise people. We're to praise God. Herod found out the hard way the meaning in of 1 Corinthians 10:31, which says that all glory goes to God. But in Acts 12:21, Herod forgot that message. In Acts 12:21 it said, "And upon a set day Herod, arrayed in a royal apparel, sat upon his throne and made an oration. And the people gave a shout, saying, 'It is the voice of God, and not of man.' And immediately an angel smote him." Why? Because he did not give God the glory. He took the glory. Glory doesn't belong to us, brethren. It belongs to God. Hymn 128, "Glorious things of thee are spoken," which was taken from Song 87, says, "Grace which like the Lord the giver never fails from age to age." Brethren, our God will never fail. He is the giver. He is the creator of the entire universe. So as we leave services today, and we go back into the world this week, let us remember that we need to glorify God in all that we do. Let us remember that we glorify God with our good works and showing praises to Him.